what I'm doing right now is I'm going to be recording my screen as I go through my process. And I think as a result of this video, you will see exactly what I did. Instead of sharing just the window, I've shared my whole screen, and that will be the content of the video. You don't need to see my face anywhere on the screen. You see enough of my face already in the video editor. So I'm going to start first by saying what I did here was, this is the raw track. Let's go to my media pool first. Let me give you the basics again one more time. So what I've done is I actually repurposed another project and I replaced all the contents. I called the raw timeline timeline 1 for now, and I replaced all the elements and replaced them with this background here that you'll notice is in this video here right behind the tiles. And I do a little trick in this particular project where I key out, you'll see I key out the black, and you can actually see the background behind it. Well, when I key out the black, I'm using the same exact background file as I do here. So when somebody's not on the screen, the black is missing and you can actually see the background. You don't have to do that. Keep it simple. Don't worry about it. We'll work on that as a bigger project next time. So ignore that for now. Just focus on the video track. You'll notice I took out the audio from that video track already because this project, this raw project here, this raw timeline here, you'll notice there's no cuts whatsoever on this timeline, except for as you know, Rachel's track was messed up. She has 3 different audio files. She got disconnected 3 times. So that's an exception. But otherwise, this is the raw track without any of the silence, truncation, any of the cuts, nothing. You'll notice that each time each person goes away, the tiles go smaller and smaller. So there's 4, and then there's 3 eventually once Sharon D leaves. So Sharon D leaves first. Let me actually just see here. I'm just looking at her settings. So I'm going to move her track up since she is move track up. So now I should be able to see a gate, noise, dialogue, processor. Yep. Okay, good. That's correct. I double click the master here. See, I don't apply the effects on the individual tracks. I actually apply it on the master here. It actually makes processing go a little easier, especially when the cuts start coming in on the other timeline. If you have all these effects applied on the track level, on the individual clip level, once the tracks get cut up in the TIMEBOLT timeline, the timeline becomes a lot harder to process. So what I did was I actually applied them on the track level, not the clip level. So you see that's the clip level. This is the track level. So double click here, and then you can go to effects and apply to all clips on this track. So I have here, you'll notice I have a G gate. So that's the noise gate, noise reduction for Sharon D because she has a little bit of buzzing on her microphone, dialogue processor, multiband compressor. You can do whatever you want here, whatever sounds good to you. But I make sure that all these things are in the raw timeline, and I'll show you what I do with them later on. But assume here that I have all the tracks lined up because I do. I took the time out to actually do this work in advance. You can see here that Bridget is the first one to leave, so I put her on the bottom. Makes it easier to do massive cuts later. I moved Sharon D second to last because she leaves a little later, and then it just ends up being me, Rachel, and Karina. Assume that I have everything set up correctly here. I have all the effects I wanted to apply on the track level for myself. I'm actually going to go through the bother of one more thing. I'm actually going to normalize the audio levels. I use this Disney -2 normalization. Because it's -2, I'm just going to add 2. So you'll see in a second, it's probably going to be like less than about -1 something. All right, so now I'm going to add 2 decibels. So that should be 260. Okay. And Karina, I'm going to normalize her track using Disney -2. For now, I have her panned to the right, but later on, as people start leaving, it's going to be different. So right now she's -130. So now +2 means just 130. I'm actually going to normalize each of these individually because what you can technically normalize these across the board. I've noticed though that it comes out much lower. So I'm going to normalize each of these of Rachel's clips. So this one's going to be just -0.1. Do the same thing here. These 2 aren't panned. I'll take care of them on this video, actually. I'll show you how I do everything. How about that? So let's normalize this one. This one came out to -0.5, which means it is +2 should be 2.5. Okay. Normalize audio level. Oop, wait, didn't hit it. Go. Wait, she's 310 here. Wait, so it raised her 310 here, so I have to make her 510? All right, no problem. All right, let's take care of Sharon D. Okay, it reduced her to 0.6, so now I'm going to put her as 2.6. Go back to Punky. Let's just check her normalization. Disney -2. Let's see what it puts her at now. All right, so -110 means that she is 110. Okay, that's all done now. Let's take care of the logo overlay. All right, it should be here. Yep, Fallout logo. Okay, let's assume it goes all the way across. Use the magnet just to get it right. Okay, let's start back here and go all the way down here. Let's see, -3. The 350 is pretty good. All right, let's leave it at that. And let's go to where Rachel drops out initially. She comes back, drops out again. Okay, now we're up to the part where Sharon drops off. Okay, we're a 4 square. Sorry, Bridget drops off. So we're a 4 square. And then Bridget leaves and it's a 3 square. So let me cut the logo and I'm going to put it, just going to drop the Y and put it down here. So that does that. So that's going to show up in one single video feed that I'll probably just apply an effect to later. Okay, so that's done. That's exactly how I want it. All right, now that I got everything lined up, I'm going to go ahead. Now, wait, before I continue, let's make sure one thing that I didn't say. Our media pool for now is timeline 1. Sorry, okay, the timeline 1 is what the timeline is called. There's no other timelines. So I'm going to call it raw. You can call it whatever you want as long as you remember the name and the capitalization because it's case sensitive. Just remember that. I'm also going to note that I'm at the beginning of the file now and it's 0000000. My preferences are actually here. File, or no, it's DaVinci Resolve preferences. I think it's a user preference. Editing. Yes, editing. Your start time code should be 00000000. That should be your time code. And whatever else here is fine. So as long as that's the case, that's how you can do it. My tracks are all lined up. My effects are the way I want them to be. All good so far. So now I'm going to render just the audio into a WAV file. So I'm going to go ahead and just give it a location. I'm just going to put it in the downloads folder. Just going to call out Fallout. For now, this is my episode 1x06. And just audio. I took out video. I don't need the video to do the audio editing for just the silence truncation. I'm actually going to dump it to WAV so it's a bit more clean. It's not as... You can do MP3. That's totally fine. But I just prefer the WAV file. It should go a lot smoother. It doesn't have to decode the playback as it plays. So that's why I use WAV. Now I'm going to render it. It's also, just keep in mind now, it's rendering the raw audio with all my effects the way I intend it. So when it makes the cuts, it's going to make it without the noise, the gate, all that stuff. So when it makes those cuts, it's going to make it at the right moments without any noise getting in the way of the silence. So there is silence in the raw track because of the gate, the noise reduction, all that stuff. So I'm going to render it now, and that's going to take a couple minutes, or actually, supposedly it's going to take a half hour. Well, now that the WAV file is exported, let me show you that. It should be right here. Called it Fallout 1x06. You can either drag and drop or use the button here to import it. And it's about what? How long is this? 2 hour plus? Maybe more? Maybe less, technically? Okay, so we have the video here. It auto-detected -44 dB as the threshold. So I'm going to set it to 40 and update. All right, so we have 5 chunks of 45 minutes apiece, which means the video is over 3 hours long, I think. Yep, technically. Now remember, the WAV file is basically the raw video. I did enable sound, so you're going to hear exactly where we start. So in the raw video, I cut off the ends already. So I know exactly where we're going to start, or at least the first part. I did not cut the end part. So you're going to hear when I start. We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond. I didn't do the new intro. We have to workshop it still. The Walking Dead universe. Okay. Now I'm going to actually cut some of that off, but here we go. And in TIMEBOLT, we are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond. I didn't do the. So I'm going to actually start. So now the reason why I use TIMEBOLT is not only because it automatically detects silence, but I can do big sweeping edits across all tracks. So for instance, I press S here, I create a split, I turn this off, and I can go beyond like this. Intro. We have to workshop it still. The Walking Dead universe. So here we go. Podcast pulverizing like episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Birch, Sharon D, a.k.a. Blazy Gardner, Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUASETER. And Karina Davy, who you can reach on Instagram at CARINAE_D. That was good, right? That was pretty efficient. Today we're going to talk about. See, I'm going to just take some of that off because that's only for us. Or so D. Now I'm actually going to make this 1.5 times X. CARINAE_D. Today we're going to talk about Fallout's 6th episode. Stuff to do, and so do you. Prime, the Fallout's. Talk about Fallout's 6th episode. Fallout's 6th episode. Amazon Prime, the Fallout's 6th episode. Titled The Trap. So titled. We're going to talk about Fallout's 6th episode. Titled The Trap. And I've had it in the chamber for 2 weeks because we missed our recording last week. The Trap. I've had it in the chamber for 2 weeks because we missed our recording last week. Because we're preparing to go to the camp, and you get the idea. We're going to just speed ahead. Now, normally what I would do is I listen to the whole track through because I want the podcast to be audio focused. Less on our face, more on the audio, making it efficient, cutting for redundancy and time, etc. But whatever. So what we're going to do here is we're going to assume all the cuts for now are the way I want them. You can see here that output is shorter by 15 minutes. Duration is 2 hours 45. Of course, I still have to cut off the ends, which I didn't do. That's fine. But you can also notice that the threshold is -40. This always pretty much stays the same. It doesn't change unless I want it to change. But it's 0.1 for remove silences longer than 0.1. Ignore detection shorter than 0.15 or 0.15. Left padding 0.1. Right padding 0.2. That's really it. Now, once it's done, sometimes I'll save the JSON file. I'm actually going to do that here, saving the timeline cut, because I want to continue from where I left off. I didn't get very far, but still. Once that's done, export to EDL. The frames per second on these videos are always 24 frames per second. Export. Now that we're done exporting, I'm going to go to the export, and I'm going to edit it. I'm going to double click. Now, before I edit this, I'm going to go back here and show you that, remember that the raw timeline is called raw. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select the output file that I called it, right? The output file that I called the wave file that I exported, that it's using for the cuts. It's called Fallout 1x06.wave. I'm going to replace that with the name of the timeline instead. Now, here's what I do. Control H. Control H means find all instances of and replace with. Fallout 1x06.wave, replace with raw, and then you're going to replace all. Now watch what happens. On the left side, anything that had the name of the wave file that I exported is now set to raw. And I'm going to go all the way down. It's going to show all the cuts. Now, a cool trick, I forgot to do this, so let me backtrack. A cool trick to do before you export the EDL. You know what? Let's forget it. Let's toss this out. Let's delete this EDL. It's fine. Okay. Let's go. Now, sometimes you'll make multiple cuts in a row like this, right? You'll see a lot of red ones in a row. What you can do is, see, TimeBolt records even those cuts. Now, there's this button here, merge similar consecutive cuts. Now watch what happens. Now it's a single cut. And so your EDL file is going to be shorter to edit. And also in your DaVinci Resolve, it'll look less like Swiss cheese. So it'll still look like Swiss cheese, but less like a crazy Swiss cheese. So now I'm going to export to EDL one more time. 24 frames per second, it remembered. And here we go. I'm going to go back to our EDL file and select the title. And it's going to also be the clip name, right? The clip name is Control H. Replace with raw, replace all. There we go. We replaced all instances, all cuts with the timeline name. Okay, save. Now it's all green. Save the file. I'm going to close it from the tab, and I'm going to close it from here. All I do from here now is I'm going to import the timeline into, right, let me do that again. File, import, timeline. I'm going to choose the file I just edited. Okay, I'm going to give the new timeline name, the name TimeBolt in capitals. EDL frame rate is 24 frames per second. I'm going to have Resolve do the mixed frame rate format. Click OK. Now we wait. It's taking a little time because there's a lot of cuts. There's thousands of cuts. Remember, these cuts are across the board. Now, what this did essentially is, let me walk you through it. When it imported the EDL, it based the new timeline that you imported on this timeline. All the cuts are across the entire raw timeline. And now that it's in TimeBolt, let me just zoom in a bit. You'll see that I can play this and this will work perfectly fine. I can use this edit, but see, the problem is that now if I leave it in this format, that's okay, but I will not be able to edit the individual tracks. So what I'm going to do, well, and just let me prove it to you now. And also the individual effects on each audio channel will not translate to this medium.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes.
You hear how it's so funny?
The universe. We give you news. Sometimes we make, but most time
it sounds really funky, doesn't it, in your ears? If you're putting on headphones now, watch. I'm gonna go zoom out, and all I care about. See, I don't care if the video track is combined. I actually want it that way because now I don't need to worry about much of the video track other than occasionally putting something on top of it, right? But the audio track, I still want the individual audio track. But before I do that, I'm going to make a copy of the raw timeline, and I'll show you why in a second. The reason why I'm making I'm duplicating this timeline, this raw timeline, for the sole reason, and I'll show you in just a second. Okay, this raw copy now contains my raw timeline copied, right? Okay, now wait. I'm going to select all and erase. I don't really care about this so much. All I care about is the FX that are applied on the track, right? I'm going to go back to my TIMEBOLT now. Ready? Where is it? TIMEBOLT. Yep, my TIMEBOLT timeline. Okay, I'm here. I'm going to Control A. I'm just going to Control C. I'm going to go to my raw copy again now. Make sure I'm in the beginning. I think I am. And I'm going to paste. Okay, right? Now, see, it looks like the copy that I pasted, right? From the TIMEBOLT. Now, I'm going to just select the audio tracks. That's all I care about here. I'm going to go up to clip, or you can either that or right click, and I can decompose in place using clips only, or I can just go up here. It's easier. Decompose in place. Now I wait, because now it's going to decompose just the audio track. You'll notice that it's taking its time now. See, again, why I like TIMEBOLT, using TIMEBOLT initially, is that not only does it take away the silences, I can make big content edit cuts. I can take out whole sections that don't belong or skip ahead to different parts of the conversation that make more sense. I don't have to do that in a multi-track editor. I can just do it on a single timeline. Where I can get into finer stuff is knowing that, let's say if somebody talks over somebody else, I can skip ahead in TIMEBOLT and just take care of it in this edit. Because I copied the raw timeline, it has the same tracks with the same effects on it. But not only that, the audio was panned along the timeline. One thing you'll notice also is that I forgot to pan the audio, and I will go back and do this in the raw timeline. I'm actually going to do all of this over and do it in the raw timeline. And basically, every time somebody leaves the session, I'm actually going to change the panning to suit where everybody's in the video. So let's say Rachel leaves, or Rachel stays to the end, but let's say Sharon leaves. Sharon was on the left side last time, but now that she leaves, we all shift to different places. I end up being in the middle anyway, which is good because then I could be the center. So I changed myself from plus 15, which means right 15. I changed myself to 0 in the raw timeline. Then I'm going to go back into TIMEBOLT, do my cuts, my overall cuts. And then when I finally come to this part where I decompose the tracks, it should say the same thing in the clip itself because I already took care of it in the raw timeline. Now, if you make a lot of cuts in TIMEBOLT, this takes a lot less longer. Usually by the time I'm done with TIMEBOLT, it's down to almost exactly where I need it to be overall, like an hour and 30, hour and 40. So this is like 2 hours and 45 minutes. So it's a little longer than usual. I don't need this anymore. Let's take this out. I saved my JSON file so I can go back to the cuts that I've made. And by the way, if you want to go back to TIMEBOLT and make more overall cuts to the episode itself, you can always open the file in TIMEBOLT. You have to set the threshold. So if it auto detects -44, you set it to -40, you update, then you apply your JSON file. Once you apply your JSON file, you can go to whatever chunk of the conversation you want to start from, and then you scroll to the right to get to the part that you need to get to. And then you can continue editing and saving your JSON file. And what's great about saving JSON files, multiple JSON files, is that if you screwed up a bunch of things, you can always go back to a previous JSON file and then apply those set of timeline cuts. So it's kind of like saving a game multiple times. In most games, you don't save over the same save file. You'll save multiple save files, let's say. And so the JSON is kind of like a save file. You can always go back to a different save file if you made too many cuts you don't agree with. Remember when I said when I do the first pass, I usually set this part up first so that once I'm ready to come back to editing the next day, let's say, I'll make sure that this is all set up beforehand, save it, and then I'll continue the rest of it the next day, because the next day would be taking out the noises, adding the overlays, maybe doing a few more overall cuts. But I'll show you an example of that because everybody's always doing something. All right, here we go. And you'll see here all the same tracks that we had before, we have here now. So We're going to start
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but
All right, so let's pretend that I don't want Rachel's laugh here. I don't. I do. I think it's funny, but let's pretend I don't. I can always go here, press the backspace. Backspace will delete a clip, essentially. But I'm going to just press Control Z because I actually kind of like that.
Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Bernie. Today we're going to talk about Fallout's 6th episode.
Okay, so that sounds a little funky, right? Let me just take out the magnet because I can better edit the audio here. I'm actually going to zoom in a bit more. Yeah, here we go.
Episode titled The Trap.
It sounds a bit better than last time. Watch this. Before it sounded
titled,
like this. You hear that?
Episode titled.
Didn't sound that great, right? 1 millisecond, and it sounds even better.
Titled The Trap.
This is what I would normally add out of TimeBolt. So just to give you an example.
I just talked to him last week.
Let me just delete all of this. Okay, here we go. So now it's just like
for
this.
reasons. But
Yes,
you know
it
what came
is.
back also? Umbrella Academy just came back today, I think it was.
Well,
See, I don't really care about this
no.
either. But you kind of get the idea. I'm going to actually go zoom ahead to the episode near the end or like the middle or something like that. And let's just go here.
That's what happened when I came to the camp. I just remember that.
See, you hear
To the
Bridget
normal
kind of
side.
sniffed here?
That's what happened when I came to the
Boom. Down. Let's see what
and
happened
then,
here.
but
These
after
little-
that, usually like my ankles and everything go back.
You hear that? Little clicks. Annoying.
And I'm like, I hate this. I hate this.
all those little peas.
So yeah, I had a lip smack here. That's annoying. Also, watch this. Control backspace while selecting just the clip, and I can take out this
hate
little-
All
this.
those little peas.
I hate this. This is horrible. And I'm still drinking water because I'm like trying to.
Pee. And I just couldn't even pee.
You get the idea. Anyway, when you're done and you have everything you need, this is what I set the output to. I'm going to deliver at the end like we did for the WAV file that we exported. Let me go back here too, because now that we're done with the decomposing of the audio, I'm just going to right click here and delete empty tracks. That's a lot of video tracks that I don't need. Okay, let's go back to deliver. And then what I set the output to is something I mentioned in the email too. I go back to video. I'll call it Fallout 1x06 again. I'm not going to export this, but export video. I set it to MPEG-4, H.265, auto, network optimization. It is a 4K video, 24 frames per second. I want it not best, but high. And then make sure that the audio is set to now AAC 192. It knows my style. Add to render queue, and then I start rendering. It's going to put it in my downloads folder for now. All right. Oh, let's pretend it's rendering. It's going to take 9 hours. I guess I've had this computer on for a little while. Wow, it's taking a long time. But anyway, we're going to stop. I don't really care for it. And that's it, really. It's basically everything you need to know. So you're going to basically listen through the entire track. You're going to take out these. You're going to take out that. You're going to take out. You're going to take out those. You're going to take out where you can hear somebody pulling a vape like this. Like that. You can take that out. You're just going to listen through the track and take out stuff like that. If you missed anything in the overall cuts that you made for content, basically skipping ahead to parts that don't need to be in the episode, let's say, you can take them out from here. Obviously, you can take out whole sections, or you can take out just a couple of people. Like if there's too much noise coming from all of them and you want to hear one speaker, you can do that. You can go like this, Control Z. I don't need to tell you. And that's really it. And then you go back to deliver. You throw out the episode. If you want to send me a lo-fi copy, you can always go here and go back to video. You do same thing, H.265. You could do H.265, and then you can send a 720, let's say, 1280 720, 24 frames per second. And then you could set like a low thing, and you can keep this at 192, let's say. The audio output is not going to significantly reduce the file, but like if you do 720p and a lower bit rate, like low, if you do least, it's going to be really, really low, and it might take a little longer because it has to compress the video a little bit more than it normally would. So, but low should be fine. Not least is not. It might take a little longer because of the compression. So, you add to render queue. Sure, let's replace the existing file. Blah blah blah. And it actually, if I start rendering now, it's going to be it's 1 hour and 35 seconds instead of 8 hours. It was saying before. I just have to restart my computer. Anyway, so stop. I don't really care for it. That's fine, and that's it really. So I'm going to leave it like that. I'm actually going to edit the second part so that it's a little shorter. And that's it. So let me know if you have any difficulty with any part of the steps, because I'm making this video so that you understand A, our process, and B, oh, and just so you know, once I've gone through the whole episode, Control A, I go back to the beginning of the file. Let me go a little bit bigger. I'm gonna move this to the side. Okay. And then I'm gonna throw in, I actually already have it as an asset in my media pool right now. I have the intro, which I'm gonna put down here. I'm gonna put the sound here as another track. Okay. Boom. And let me just go a little. I'm gonna put it next to the video track, leaving this as a stereo track, right? And now I'm gonna Control A, but I'm also gonna hold Control and deselect these two so that I can move all of this a little to the right, or to the left, sorry. Go zoom in a bit more. Okay, I'm actually gonna use a magnet so it just attaches for a hot sec. See if it works. Okay, all right. I'm gonna actually expand this a bit more and let it play out a little bit. You don't have to do this, but this is what I do. I'm gonna be doing this part, but just so you can see what I'm doing. I think about here is fine. I'm gonna have it attached to the timeline marker. Oh, I went a little too far. I'm basically dragging thousands of cuts right now, so that's why it's taking a little longer. 12 whole seconds. Okay, here we go. Okay, see if that worked.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe.
Okay, so now let's say this is where I want it at. Let's do the effects. I'm going to do an additive dissolve, and I'm going to extend it all the way to the end. Now that it's cached a little bit.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe.
Oh, I also do this too, but here we go.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosplum09, Rachel Birch, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, Bridget.
All right, and that's it basically. All right, let me know if this helped you out, and if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully this will be of use to you, and if you have any questions or if you get stuck on any piece, maybe even send me a clip of the exact part that you're having an issue with, and then we'll go through it together.